Hey everyone, it's Nicole Spohr here today with a fall bouquet die cut card featuring some of my favorite honeybee stamps and dies. We're going to be creating this pumpkin fall bouquet arrangement using the fall bouquet dies, and we're going to be adding shading with Copic markers for lots of depth and dimension. In addition to this, I'm using an awesome new stencil from Honeybee Stamps to really make the background have some subtle interest so that bouquet really pops. We're going to start with some Hero Hues Arctic cardstock, and we're going to ink with the watercolor lines stencil using the Pinkfresh Studio Ocean Breeze ink. We're going to apply this ink with a blending brush first. This is going to give a tone-on-tone effect. I really like the look of a subtle tone-on-tone background. You could also pick a pattern paper if you have one in your stash. What I like about the ink is as this dye ink dries, it's going to dry really faint and light. And then we can ink around the edges of this panel to soften the border as well. So now that I have used that watercolor line stencil, I'll go ahead and remove that, and now I'm simply going to ink around the edges using that same Ocean Breeze ink. You can see how this really softens and kind of blurs the edges. It's going to frame up our beautiful arrangement perfectly. I've also pre-die cut most of the components for my card off camera to save some time. We're going to be using rich shades of cardstock for this fall themed bouquet. While the die cuts are beautiful on their own, I think the addition of a little bit of marker coloring really just takes it up a notch and adds that fantastic dimension that we love. Starting with the die cut pumpkin, which was die cut from Fawn Dolphin cardstock, we're going to use E40 and E43 to add shading to our pumpkin. I'm a huge fan of white pumpkins. I decided instead of doing traditional orange, I really wanted to do a white pumpkin here. So I started with the Dolphin cardstock, which has a bit of a tint of color to it anyway. And then we'll add E40 and E43, making sure to leave those feathered strokes in for lots of texture. The sentiments I'll be using, I'll stamp in a little bit, but I laid them out to make sure that I thought they were going to fit across my pumpkin. Next, for our sunflower, I have die cut this from the Hero Hues Mustard cardstock. I've cut 2 layers of the sunflower. There's 2 floral images, or dies rather, in this set that layer together, plus the flower center. I have a solid and then a die cut center. The center for my florals were die cut from 2 shades of brown, which are Fawn Ground Coffee and Hero Hues Chestnut. I'm feathering in the color for my sunflower with YR23 and YR24. I'm not blending this out, but rather leaving a lot of those feathered strokes in to really give the florals some depth and dimension. I'm not coloring the center as we're going to be layering that flower center in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and glue my sunflower together and put something heavy on top like an acrylic block to hold that flat while the liquid glue dries. For our large dark green leaves, these have been die cut from Hero Hues Palm cardstock and colored with YG95 and YG99. Again, I'm doing very tone-on-tone, and I'm not blending out the color too much because I want the texture of those feathered lines. For the yellow leaf, this was die cut from Fawn No. 2 pencil. It's a little bit different than the mustard cardstock I used above, but I am going to use YR23 and YR24 to add my shading to that leaf. My orange leaf is die cut from Hero Hues Pumpkin cardstock, aptly named for a fall-themed card. We're going to blend this with YR27 and YR24. I want to tuck some fall leaves and acorns around the base of my pumpkin to help ground that floral bouquet image in the center of my card. For the lighter green leaf, this was die cut from Hues Pesto cardstock. I've got this leaf and a few smaller ones as well as a flower center die cut from the Pesto cardstock. We're going to use YG 93 and 95 to shade any of those images. My dark deep purple flower is die cut from one of my favorite Hero Hues cardstock colors called Plum. We're going to shade this floral with RV66 and RV69. Our last floral is die cut from Hues Cranberry cardstock. We're going to shade this with R37 and R39. All deep, rich shades that really work perfectly for a fall-themed card. Flower centers for the purple flower and for the red flower are going to be die cut from Pesto and No. 2 pencil cardstock colors. We'll add shading to them with some of our markers as well. I really wanted to be consistent throughout the design, so shading has been added to almost everything for my card. The only exceptions are the acorns and then the little sprigs or twigs on my card that have been die cut from the Hues Chestnut cardstock. We'll add just a few more finishing touches to the last few die cut images, and then we're ready to start putting it all together. Before we adhere anything to our card, we want to stamp and emboss our sentiments across the center of our pumpkin. I could have added the sentiments elsewhere, but I really felt like that center of the pumpkin was a great place to add our sentiments to the card, instead of above or below the bouquet. It really fills out the design nicely, and it's almost the perfect landing place for our sentiment. I couldn't find a smaller honeybee stamp sentiment I wanted to use, so instead I am pairing the Faboolous Sentiments Autumn Blessings Greeting with a smaller phrase from the Simon Says Stamp Woodland Whimsy stamp set. Our greeting is going to read, "Autumn blessings, so incredibly thankful for you, love you." I think this is a great card to send to anyone during the autumn season. I stamped the sentiments with clear embossing ink, and I'm heat embossing with Simon Says Stamp Antique Gold Embossing Powder. This is going to work really beautifully with our pumpkin and kind of just tie into the neutral colors that we used. I'm ready to adhere the pumpkin to my background and start assembling the flowers on my card. If you don't want to use the pumpkin, you can always use the vase that comes in the fall bouquet set. There's lots of options here, lots of flowers, different size leaves, sprigs, all kinds of great embellishments to create fall-themed die-cut scenes. I'm tucking two of the leaves down there to the left of the base of the pumpkin. Since the sunflower is the largest floral design and kind of takes center stage, I'm going to adhere it first and tuck some sprigs and leaves back behind it. Then I can add my plum and cranberry flowers as well as additional leaves and sprigs. I don't want to leave the right side of the base of the pumpkin out, so it will also have a leaf and an acorn tucked down there just to help balance the entire design. I'm being careful not to add too much liquid adhesive to some of the images so that I am still able to tuck and build our bouquet really easily. I'm trying to get a little height at the top with some of those sprigs and taller leaves. If any of the dies are kind of on the smaller side, I find it easiest to use a pair of craft tweezers to hold on to them while I add the liquid glue and then tuck them in place. This helps keep my fingers out of the glue and helps get perfect placement every time. The acorns are especially small, so the tweezers come in very handy. I'm going to do both the, I would call them large and small, but they're kind of small and extra small. I'm going to adhere the acorns there, the two sizes, on the left side of the pumpkin. I'll die cut another small pumpkin and add it over to the right. I didn't initially die cut enough leaves for my card, so I will go back and die cut another maple leaf, color it in with some of my red markers here in a minute, and add that over on the right side as well as that final acorn. I think the acorns are a fantastic little touch here. They were die cut from the ground espresso, Lawn Fawn cardstock, and paper bag cardstock. To the center of my sunflower in those die cut holes, I decided to use some Nuvo crystal drops in dark walnut to embellish. It's going to give a shiny raised area to all those little dots and just as a great little finishing touch. When using Nuvo crystal drops, you're going to want to make sure you let this sit and completely dry for a good 24 hours before trying to mail your card. I did take a dark brown marker in E47 and add some little dot detail to the top of my acorns. Here is that last leaf that I was talking about that I felt like I needed. I also die cut a few additional green leaves to add to my bouquet. For the red leaf, I'm going to color this in with R37 and R39 and then tuck that right there on the right base of my pumpkin and add the acorn on top. The light blue of the background, while kind of considered a non-traditional choice for a fall themed card, really makes the fall colors of this fall bouquet pop against that background. I'm going to use my craft tweezers to hold that acorn in place while the liquid glue dries. I'm going to add the panel to a white top fold card base, and my card is all finished. Thank you so much for joining me today for this fall bouquet die cut card featuring shading with Copic markers. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel to never miss a new card making or paper crafting video. Thank you for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.